This is the eMAX 7, BYD's latest MPV. It replaces the E6, and with that, the E7 goes decidedly upmarket. There are 2 seating options, 2 battery options, lots of features, and that's without any major change in price. Interesting, right? Now I'm going to tell you all about this new MPV, and with that also answer 3 important questions. How good or bad is it? Number 2, should Toyota be worried and will it replace a HyCross? And number 3, well, what BYD is doing wrong. If you like this video, subscribe to the Evo India channel and hit the bell icon to stay notified. The eMAX 7 looks premium for sure, and key to that are these new headlamps, these multi-LED headlamps. They look really rich and make the car stand out. Also, there's a smart use of chrome in the bumpers, and overall this dragon face design that's obviously inspired by its origins in China, but overall looks like a smart MPV. Let me take you to the side of the car because that's where you see the scale of it and some interesting details. So it's 4.7 meters long, which is not huge by Innova standards, but there's 2.8 meters between the wheels, and that creates a lot of space on the inside. Of course, because it's an EV, the skateboard architecture, and so you get a lot of space in the cabin. It's not that cab forward though, despite being an MPV, but there's a good space utilization on the inside, which I'll show you soon. I like these 17-inch alloy wheels. There's a brand called Gitti that is providing the tires. So I've never heard of it. This is a new tire on the eMAX 7. Of course, it's from China, so you get a Chinese brand on it. Otherwise, you get NFC entry to the car, which you can tap on the mirrors and move towards the side, and you get blacked out B pillars, C pillars and D pillars, and this long chrome strip that runs along the length of the car, both at the sill and at the top of the window. You also get these smart roof rails that look pretty cool and give it a bit of a sporty appearance, and towards the back there's a long spoiler extending towards the back of the car. Now let me show you the rear end of the eMAX 7 and tell you what it is inspired by. Now this is a black car, so you can't really see all the lines of the car right now, but these tail lights, they look inspired by a certain German sedan. Do leave us a comment on which car it seems inspired by. Otherwise, looks like a smart rear end. You get chrome strips on the bumper and connecting the 2 tail lights, and also there's a light bar connecting the 2 tail lights. Looks really smart, I think. Now let me show you the interior and the space in the boot. With the third row folded flat, you get 580 liters of boot space. With it up, you get 180 liters of it. Very usable. Even the third row, I'll show you how much space it has. Really comfortable on the inside. An MPV customer is expected to be a lot more conservative than someone who buys, say, an Atto 3 SUV, and that's why the interior is not so flashy. It's quite understated. I like the new steering wheel with a lot more features packed in. You get analog instrument clusters, which is surprising for an EV in this day and age, but I think I like this more than a digital display. The screen swivels like every screen in a BYD does. This is in portrait mode. You can put it into landscape mode by the click of a button. There are lots of storage spaces in this car. 2 places for your phone, with the right one for wireless charging. You get 2 bottle holders here, a small cubby hole here, a large storage space over here, and large door pockets. Also, it gets Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, but when you plug it in, the screen won't stay in portrait mode. It swivels to its landscape mode like it's doing right now. I like the gear shift lever over here. You get drive modes on the right and regen modes on the left, and the seats, they are cooled and ventilated. These are comfortable seats but lack a little bit of under thigh support. Long distances could get a little tiring, but with an EV you can't do that long distances anyway, so I suppose it should be fine. Now let me show you the middle row and show you what the comfort feels like and how much more accessible it is than before. This is the 6-seat version of the eMAX 7, which means it gets captain seats in the middle row and a large panoramic glass roof. It's a fixed glass, but it gets a thick blind, unlike the Seal, which didn't get a blind, and that created a lot of issues in this summer heat. But at this car, it's very comfortable. The seats itself, they are comfortable, but it is a high floor because of the batteries in the floor. You sit up high with the knees sort of facing up. That's a little bit uncomfortable, unlike, you know, a petrol MPV would feel like. But otherwise there's good space, and the seats, they slide front and back, and you can also recline the angle. You can control your air conditioning. There are vents in the roof. You get a type A and type C port to charge your phone, and these armrests, these are very comfortable seats. It's also easier to access the third row with the 6-seat option. Come, let me show you the space in the third row. The middle row doesn't tumble, but it slides up front and folds ahead to give you easy access, or relatively easy access, to the third row. Wow, okay, there is decent space actually in the third row. My knees are not even hitting the seat, and it's set to my seating position, so there is decent space. I've got no under thigh support, of course. This is the third row, so you're not going to expect that. But I get a bottle holder and an AC vent and a decent glass window. That's a good place to be for even an adult. Also, the headrests, these adjustable headrests, they're quite nice, and I think you can spend longer times over here than in most third rows of 7-seat SUVs or MPVs in India. Now let me get to the driver's seat and tell you all about how it drives. The E6 was BYD's first product in India, and with that they were testing the waters, trying to find out what the Indian customer wants. And they've done good research with it, because with the eMAX 7 it fixes a lot of the problems with the E6, which was it was not premium enough to be considered a family MPV. With the eMAX 7 you get 2 captain seats in the middle row. You didn't get that with the E6. You get 2 battery options, you get 2 performance options. Of course, it's the same motor, but it's tuned to 2 different variations depending on its price and battery capacity. So the eMAX 7 is a lot more flexible product in that sense, a wider portfolio with a lot more options to choose from. So the 71.8 kilowatt hour battery from the E6, it carries forward to the E7. It gives 10 more kilometers of NEDC range, which is 530 kilometers on a single charge now, which is up from 520. And you get a smaller 55.4 kilowatt hour battery that gives 420 kilometers of NEDC range, which itself is fairly decent. And the BYD batteries, they deliver quite a true range in that sense. So in the real world you'll get far closer to the claimed range that the company suggests. With the larger battery you also get more performance. So you get 201 brake horsepower and 310 newton meters of torque. With the smaller battery it's 161 brake horsepower and the same 310 newton meters of torque. For MPV standards, the performance is actually very good. You get 0 to 100 in a claimed 8.6 seconds. I switch into sport and I put my foot on the throttle, and it actually pulls with good strength. It's actually quite a quick MPV. Of course, you're not going to be corner carving or blasting down highway at breakneck speeds, but it's good acceleration and you can make quick time on the highway. So staying at highway speeds and overtaking becomes far easier, and because all the weight is down in the floor, it doesn't feel like there's too much weight transfer when you're accelerating. It doesn't feel like it lunges or pitches. I mean, the body control is actually very, very impressive. The car has that European air to it. It is soft for its purpose because it's an MPV. It's got to be very comfortable. It has that big car feel. It soaks in the bumps very nicely. It rides with a composure that's refreshing and surprising for a Chinese car. I'm quite impressed with it. The brakes work well. It's got discs up front and rear, and the car feels like a very nice car to drive. There's good weight in the steering. There's a barricade up front, so I'm just going to go through it like you go through a chicane, and the car will not, change its weight transfer too much. It feels like a very nicely tied down MPV. Actually quite impressed with it. Changing direction is something this vehicle does really well. So in that sense, the dynamics front is very sorted. The problem though is that the seats are not very ergonomically designed, so they don't feel as comfortable, as spacious as you feel in something like an Innova. So over longer periods of time, doing 500, 800 kilometers in a day is going to feel a little more tiring in this than Innova would feel. Otherwise, in terms of driving, I think this is a far better car to drive for sure. It feels so tight down. For an MPV, doesn't feel loose in any way. There is body roll, but it's controlled and it's acceptable for this kind of car. So the throttle pedal is responsive. You get drive mode settings on the right. Over here you get the region settings on the left. I can switch from eco to normal to sport mode, and I get a standard regen setting and I get a larger regen setting, which is a strange feature to have. Larger, okay, but it is there. Larger means it's going to do heavy regen, and that is going to slow the car down faster. In standard mode, just leave it in standard and the car just works seamlessly. It's not too obtrusive, so you don't feel it slowing down excessively, and that works in regular driving conditions. Once in a while tap at the brakes, but otherwise the regen works to slow the car down effortlessly, and it feels very seamless. I get a good view of the road ahead from the driver's seat, except for the excessively thick A-pillar. It's a cab forward design because it's an MPV, so you get a good commanding view of the road ahead, but there are a few blind spots here and there. It also warns you of your blind spots. One feature that I liked, which I was going through in the settings, that gets heated mirrors. Excellent when you're driving in the rains. That's a feature that every modern premium car should have. This car gets it at this price, which is a good thing. I don't think any other car at this price offers that setting. I think overall the eMAX 7, very nicely rounded product. Now at the beginning of this video I asked 3 questions and I'm going to answer that. The first one, how good or bad is it? Well, overall the eMAX 7 is a very good vehicle, well rounded. Lacks a little on the comfort front. The seats, that's something that they can work on and make it a lot more comfortable, but besides that, in terms of range, in terms of performance, in terms of ride quality, dynamics, the eMAX 7 does really well. So if I had to rate it out of 5, I'd give it a 4-star. It's got ADAS as well. That's something I didn't speak about earlier, so ticks every box, gives a lot of features. The eMAX 7, that way, for the price that it comes at, it does a really good job of a well-rounded premium product. Number 2, does Toyota have to worry, and will it replace a HyCross? I think not, definitely not. The HyCross still holds its ground because first, the BYD network is very small. Second, this car isn't homologated yet, so they get to sell only 2,500 units till the financial year ends, which is March 2025, and after that they can ramp up their sales, but it's still going to be not that big a deal because it's still going to come from China, so the acceptance of a Chinese product is a question till they start assembling here or getting it from maybe Thailand. If they start producing this car in Thailand for India, then it's a worry for Toyota, but until then it's not going to be a significant impact on the Toyota leadership in the MPV space. Number 3, what's wrong with BYD? Part of it was answered in the previous question, and that's the problem. BYD needs to be brave. They're just not brave enough. A part of it is investment in India. Chinese investment is restricted, so expanding, pumping in more money, despite the scale of the company and the money that BYD China has, they can't pump that money into the Indian operations. So they need to find an Indian partner, and that's where BYD is going to face a challenge, because it needs an Indian partner to expand. It needs a braver plan for India that doesn't depend on China. Their products have a USP. The blade battery is excellent, reliable, and the products itself are quite good. But what next? There is going to be competition that catches up eventually, and you don't want to lose that advantage. And as of now, I feel that BYD has that advantage that it will lose in the coming years. Until then, if they don't make a big move, until they signal that they are far more serious about India, it's still going to be a very niche company. That's what we'd like to see from BYD. I don't have a prejudice against it being a Chinese product, but what I would like to see from BYD is that they take the Indian operations far more seriously, with a larger presence, a wider scale of operations, and more local assembly, finding an Indian partner, that sort of thing. So that is a major wrong with BYD right now. They need to take the Indian operations far more seriously than they have been taking it before. Prices for the eMAX 7 start from rupees 26.9 lakh and go up to rupees 29.9 lakh. The 6-seat variants are about rupees 60,000 cheaper than the 7-seat variants, which make them a better deal in my opinion. Over the 3 years, the eMAX 7 has seen only a rupees 75,000 price increase compared to the E6, while offering a lot more premium experience than before. And I think that's a fair trade-off. Well, I've been driving the eMAX 7 the entire morning on this beautiful East Coast road towards Pondicherry. I'm very, very impressed with this MPV, except for the seat comfort that's a little lacking, and the knees up seating position because of the battery in the floor. There's very little the eMAX 7 does wrong. It's got an excellent powertrain, a reliable blade battery, and it's a very nice car to drive. If there's one thing BYD needs to do to make this a huge success in India, is to show more commitment in the Indian market, because as a product, I don't find much that's wrong with the eMAX 7.